What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. We thank you guys for tuning in. Happy Monday. Hopefully your weekend was great. Coming off a 4-day weekend, I don't know how I'm going to survive this week. I'm going to try and manage somehow. But first and foremost, before we get to the Broncos, I would like to officially state once more, I hate the Minnesota Vikings. I hate everything about them. I hate what they stand for as a team. I hate just... I cannot stand the Minnesota Vikings. They probably have usurped the Kansas City Chiefs as my most hated team in all of sports. I cannot stand them.
I told you to pick them.
I cannot stand them. They make me angry. They make me angry.
I can't believe you picked against them.
Who were they playing? I forgot who they were playing. They were playing a team that they should have beat or should have lost to.
No.
Yeah, Carolina. Yeah, Carolina should have won that game, and they should have.
No.
They had a chance. They were winning late.
Christmas.
Christmas.
McCaffrey didn't play, so and Bridgewater played, but he was coming off I don't know.
I absolutely despise them.
I thought that was an easy pick. They won only by 1 point. So
yeah, I know, because Carolina was winning late, and then somehow they lose it. So maybe I should actually hate Carolina. Either way, I just needed to start that way. You gained a couple games on me. I think I'm only up 18 now. So
how are you up 18? Weren't you up to only 16?
No, I was up 20. Well,
no,
I don't know.
No,
I was up 20 before.
No.
Then we did the pick. Then you sent in your. Then you redid your picks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to recount.
So
but...
now I think I'm within 14 or 15.
Am I really gonna have to recount this right now? All right, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98. So you won 10 games already. We still have 2 more games, Pittsburgh Tuesday and Seattle tonight, that game. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're at 98, and as it stands right now, 98 and 76. I'm at 115 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 115 and 59. So what is that? 17?
I don't know how that's possible. Because wasn't I only 17 back on Friday?
No, going into the week you were 19.
Are you counting the wins on Thursday? On mine?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you were 19 back going into week 12.
Oh, I was 19 back. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. I think you're only 17 back or 18. Whatever we said. I don't know. Makes me angry though. I hate the Minnesota Vikings. That is all. The Denver Broncos. They had a game yesterday. It was awful to watch. It might have been worse than the Tebow days. Because at least Tebow, you knew, could at least complete a few passes. They may look like wounded ducks, but they would get there eventually. One would strike through, especially the fourth quarter.
He never completed less than 2.
Exactly. And we won that game. But and against the Chiefs. Suck it, Chiefs. I'll always have that over you, no matter how many Super Bowls you win. First and foremost, respect to Kendall Hinton.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just put in an awful situation.
He was getting killed out there.
He was really, Cameron Jordan. Did you have to murder the kid every time he threw the football?
Right.
Literally every.
Come on.
He looked like a 15-year-old high school kid just getting obliterated every time. I just felt so bad.
If they put their coach out there, the assistant coach.
Right.
He would have been knocked out of the game halfway through. Not even. At least Kendall Hinton survived the game.
Yeah, somehow. But he kept getting there was 3 or 4 times in the first half where at the end of every drive he was just getting murdered after he threw the ball, and I was like, are we not seeing this? Is this not a flag at all? One of those was at least a for sure helmet to helmet. But respect to him, he was put in an awful situation. Played some quarterback in in college for Wake Forest, but he's been a practice squad wide receiver this whole time. So I mean, he was just doomed to fail at that point. Yeah. And I get it. People are mad. I'll say this. Did the Broncos get an unfair kind of rap? Yes. Mainly, I'm going to defend the non-quarterback players here. They were put in a tough situation, especially Kendall Hinton. And say he would have got severely injured yesterday.
Right.
That would have been on the NFL.
Right.
Like, you put a guy in there, or the running backs, which Philip Lindsay came out of there hurt, by the way, which depressed I am. Speaking like Yoda, I don't know why. But like, you put them in a terrible situation, the Broncos as a whole, the other players, because it wasn't their fault that the quarterback room decided to act stupid, selfishly, and recklessly. I mean, I'm just so baffled, and I'll get to that in a second. But did the Broncos, in that aspect, those guys deserve the game to be postponed? Yes, I think so. There was no point for this game to be postponed. You know, I thought a lot of people made good points last night. I forgot who it was that said it, but if you're in the Saints division, like if you're Tampa, like you should be angry that they got to get just a free win yesterday, and they didn't really have to try for a win. That's what they got, was a free win, and the NFL knew that was going to happen. However, I do understand why the NFL did what they did, because recently they sent out a memo making their protocols more strict and emphasizing the masks even more. And what do the Broncos quarterback room do? They're with a high-risk guy, and they all forego the masks. And Drew Lock put out an apology yesterday, and you know what? He made a mistake. I'm glad he owned up to it. Hopefully that was on his own doing that he wanted to put that out, and not the team being like, hey, you should put this out. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there, hopefully. But the quarterback room is supposed to be the room with your biggest leaders that are not your head football coach. That is the guy, whoever your starting quarterback is the leader of your team. Whether he's vocal or not, he's looked to as a leader of your team. And for Drew Lock to blatantly disregard the rules and the policies, that to me is just, I was already practically off the Drew Lock train. Now I'm completely off of it. That to me shows lack of awareness, lack of leadership. Not only, and it's not just a simple thing like, I forgot to study my playbook, or I'm not in my playbook as much. No, it's we're in a pandemic. The rules at my job just got more strict, but I'm gonna still disregard my mask. Not because it puts me at risk, but it could severely put anybody I come into contact with at risk, whether it be, you know, coaches or, you know, family members, whatever the case. Like, it's complete lack of just understanding and awareness of the situation, and disrespect. So all these Broncos fans that are mad at the NFL for making an example of them, how about you be more mad at that quarterback room? And a lot of people are giving Fangio flack for yesterday. He came out in the post game saying, you know, essentially throwing the quarterback room under the bus, saying, I'm disappointed with them. They put us in a terrible situation. And, you know, Vic has been known to kind of point fingers everywhere else except for him. But yesterday, I was completely fine with him doing that, because they did put the Broncos in a bad situation. And for a quarter of that game, you could make an argument the Denver Broncos probably could have had a chance to win that game, because Taysom Hill didn't look much better than Kendall Hinton. I'll just put it that way. And for them to do that and act so stupidly, so selfishly, so recklessly, it makes me angry. I feel for the rest of the Broncos players that wanted the game postponed. But as for the quarterbacks and why the NFL did what they did, I have no issue with it. At the end of the day, I don't have issue with it, because those guys are the ones that screwed up and not everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just shows just the leadership in the quarterback room, obviously, and we've kind of seen it all season long. That's pretty much the issue with the offense, is the quarterback room. No matter who's out there, they just don't play well, or they're inconsistent, or whatever. And for them to not show any leadership and just wear your masks, like, it's not that hard. It really isn't. And there's so many people. It's not just athletes and whatever. There's so many people out there that for some reason do not understand how important masks are, and they get so upset that they have to wear a mask. Like, it's not that hard to wear a mask. And,
no, it's not.
And
I get people, like, people are
and
frustrated about it. Like, you don't want to wear. Nobody wants to wear masks.
No,
okay,
but
this is what we have to do.
But it's really not that hard. And there's masks out there where they have, you know, breathable masks that you can go and spend $20-$30 on. At the end of the day, it's $20-$30. If you are having a hard time breathing, then grab one of those, right? Or I see people in stores wearing, you know, how coaches have the clear shield in front of them. There's people in stores wearing those. Just buy one of those then. It's not that hard. And the one thing that bothers me the most is when people pull down their mask to talk. You realize that defeats the purpose of the mask, right? You know, I'll see coaches pull down their mask to talk, and it's like, why? That defeats the whole purpose of it. There's no reason to do that. Literally no reason. The only time that makes sense to pull down your mask when you talk is if you're really far away and you're trying to yell. Because if you try and yell with the mask on, no one will understand you, right? If you're trying to yell from far away, trying to talk to someone. But and you're, 30, 40 feet away from the person, so it doesn't really matter that much, right? If you pull the mask down. But if you're right next to someone or in a room with someone and you're pulling your mask down to talk, you're an idiot. You're flat out, you're an idiot. They were showing last night, was watching the NBC pregame show. They were showing Chicago and Green Bay, showing some of the guys out on the field. You got two coaches talking to each other, right next to each other. They have their mask on. And they're doing just fine. They're not, it didn't seem like they were struggling to communicate. When I'm talking to someone at, the cash register at a King Soopers, it's not that hard to communicate. I can talk to them just fine. You don't need to pull your mask down. And that was the issue. I think I've heard multiple different reports that some people said they didn't have the mask. Some people say they did, but they were pulling them down to talk. Keep your mask on. It's not that difficult. So that's where, that's my issue with it. The Broncos were going to lose anyways. I want them to lose. So I don't mind that they had to play the game. I do feel bad for the other players. I don't necessarily feel bad for Kendall Hinton because he did get an opportunity to play. And he said, before the game, he was all excited. And when he got the call, he was super excited. So good for him. He got some, he got to go out there, play in an NFL game. Cool. I feel bad for the other players. Feel bad for Philip Lindsay. The receivers out there, the defense, they were put in a bad position. Don't really feel bad for the coaches because, you got to enforce that. You got to make sure that that's happening. So, it's just, it shows you, the other part of it though too, because I was thinking about this yesterday, and I don't really get why the Broncos game wasn't postponed, just because every other team, if you bring in, their tape of their meetings, their quarterback room, I guarantee you more than half the league is doing the same thing that the Broncos are doing. That camera feed or that video would have been the exact same thing of them pulling their mask down to talk or whatever. So is this going to happen again to another team? Because it should. If we come out in here that, a quarterback room is disqualified and their game gets postponed, then, yeah, the Broncos got screwed. So I'm very curious to see what happens from here on out, especially if you get to the playoffs. Because,
going forward, I think you need to set a precedent. Well, this sets a precedent. It should at least.
But here's a problem with the NFL, because the NFL is very poor. It's a very poorly run league. They're not the NBA. They're not the NHL. They make a lot of mistakes. I always look back at the Ray Rice one, where you suspend him for four games or 3 games, something like that. And then you come back and say, oh, never, you see the reaction from everyone. Then you say, oh, no, he's suspended indefinitely. You can't do that. That's actually illegal. There's something in there where Ray Rice, I don't know if he did or not, but he could have sued the NFL. Honestly, I'm pretty sure he did. The NFL gets sued a lot, and from their own players, because they make stupid decisions. And so I don't I honestly don't expect the NFL to hold this as, I if this happens to Kansas City or a team that's fighting for a playoff spot that's actually in the playoff hunt, not a fake playoff hunt that Denver's in, I don't expect the NFL to do the same. I don't, because they're poorly run. They're one of the worst run leagues in the world, and I don't trust the NFL to make the right decision when it comes down to it. So, and I've always said that. When on Twitter at one point, when the NBA finished the bubble, I said, this is why the NBA is the best run league in the world. And I got, a bunch of people were like, "Oh, what about the NFL? They make a lot of money. They make the most money out of any league." I'm like, yeah, so they're very popular. Yeah. Does that make them the best run league? No. The NBA proved it. The NFL continues to prove that they are one of the worst run leagues. So yeah. I don't. We'll see. We'll see. They can obviously do the right thing, and when this happens again, because it will happen again, we'll see what happens. But I get the Baltimore situation is a little different just because they have 20 plus players that were tested positive. But the whole quarterback room should be disqualified, shouldn't it? Where's the video on that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, the Broncos they're an example, but that example is not gonna be held up to the rest of the teams. Maybe a Cincinnati, or I don't know, not even the Redskins, because they're in the playoff hunt at 4-7. I don't know. It's not gonna happen to the Jets, or it probably will happen to Jets. But
it's a precedent.
The
that
Ravens,
has to be...
the Steelers, the Chiefs, it won't happen.
Yeah, it's a precedent that has to be set, like you would think going forward, as you mentioned with the Ray Rice thing. It needs to be followed. So if you did this to one team, now moving forward, you have to do it to another team. But again, I think there is some truth to it. And I saw this on Twitter yesterday that some people believe the reason that the Broncos got punished is one, because they suck,
right back.
which was because they're not good, which I believe that to be true. I mean, if they were a good football team, you'd probably make concessions to help them out a little bit. The Broncos were going nowhere, so we can make an example out of them. At the same time, too, they don't have an owner to dispute anything, so it makes it an easier target for the NFL. And at the end of the day, it just shows a lack of leadership from the top down. From John Elway to Fangio, your quarterback room, it just, every step of the way, the further we get into the season, no matter what week it is, there's always an excuse, there's always a mistake, and no one seems to correct any mistake that's made. And hopefully these Broncos quarterbacks, at least I saw Drew Lock own up to it, hopefully going forward he can take this more seriously. It was a mistake. It is what it is. We all make mistakes. Hopefully this is a teaching point for him going forward. But for me, it's just, combined with the play, I just don't see how you can rely on a guy like that after making a mistake like that off the field. To me, it just shows with the play, lack of leadership. I'm just out on Drew Lock. And I get there's Broncos fans that are upset. Seems like there's inconsistency in how they handle things with the NFL. But you know what? At the end of the day, again, the Broncos are a bad football team. They're not going anywhere. So someone needed to be made an example out of, and it's the Broncos. Hey, how about just be mad that the Broncos made the mistake in the first place? If the Broncos QBs don't act reckless in the first place, you're not in this situation. You don't have to deal with being thrown out into a game without a quarterback. Now, at the same time, was it fair of the NFL to realize and put a team out there, at least fair to the other Broncos players, without a quarterback? Another point was made last night that I saw, that if you down linebackers, okay, you can make an adjustment there. If you're down safeties, okay, you can move corners there. If you're down a left tackle, you can move a lineman there, or you can make those adjustments. There's hardly any replacement if every single quarterback you have goes down. It's just not possible to do. The Broncos end up losing. Hopefully for Philip Lindsay's sake, who injured his knee, hopefully he is fine and there's nothing serious going on there. There's going to be an MRI going on today with his knee. Hopefully we can get the best possible news out of that. But if you're Philip Lindsay at this point, I know he won't think like this because he's a competitor and he's prideful and he wants to go out there and do everything he can to compete. But if I'm Philip Lindsay, what's the point of me playing anymore at this point? Why we're not going to the playoffs? We have 5 games left, against 3 of which are against playoff teams in the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Raiders. That in 2 of those games that we've played already against those opponents, we got our heads kicked in. The Chiefs dropped 30, 40 on you. The Raiders could have dropped 60 if they didn't make their own mental mistakes. You were down to the Chargers 24-3 at one point, and you had to make a hellacious comeback in that one just to beat a bad football team. And then you have a Carolina team who can be competitive if they don't, wet the bed like they did against the Minnesota Vikings. So at the end of the day, if I'm Philip Lindsay, what's the point of me coming back? Why am I risking my long-term health when I'm coming up on a contract year? There's no point in that. 5 games left. Team's not going to the playoffs. It's not a good football team. I've already missed time earlier in this season, so it's not like I'm chasing 1,000 yards or a Pro Bowl berth or anything like that. He might as well just sit out. And I doubt he would do that because he's a competitor. But at this point, it just makes no sense for him to even play. And that's, in my opinion, it just doesn't. Other than that, I mean, from yesterday's game, there's not much we can take away. You don't have any quarterbacks. Your offense was limited in what they could do. So you didn't get to see another game of Judy improving. Fant had a nice, catch in there. But other than that, there was nothing to really take away from that. The defense, for the most part, give them credit. I mean, they held their own in the first quarter. You held them scoreless, which if you're the Saints, you got to be disappointed there that a team without a quarterback held you scoreless and you couldn't do anything. And you're a playoff team at 9-2. Now, again, they turned it on in the second quarter and they score 17, shut out the Broncos, and the Broncos only score 3 in the entire game because that's pretty much all they can do most of the time. If it's not Brandon McManus scoring, who do the Broncos have to score the football? So, I mean, the defense looked good for the first quarter of the game, but outside of that, I mean, they were probably tired from being out on the field so much because you can't sustain a drive. And that's just the story of the whole season. And really, these past, 3 or 4 years, the Denver Broncos defense can't catch a break. And even when they aren't playing well and the offense is playing well, the Broncos suffer and they falter. And that's just how it goes. But give credit to the Broncos defense for coming out, being ready to play. I think Bryce Callahan also got hurt yesterday. He was out. I saw Ojemudia got to play a little bit. That's a guy who's been in the doghouse as of late for that team for whatever reason. Is it because of the missed tackles? Is it because of blown coverage assignments? We're not sure. But he got some playing time yesterday as Bryce Callahan got hurt, and that's a situation too where it's concerning. Like, why even come back at this point if you're Bryce Callahan, a guy who missed all of last year with the foot injury, and who notoriously throughout his career has struggled with football injuries or with injuries. Why even come back? Why even risk him coming back? And I think he's going into a contract year himself. So, I mean, I guess you want to come back from that standpoint to prove that you want to earn a good payday. But I mean, at a certain point, is it worth the risk? If you're Justin Simmons, you have to play because you have to get that payday. But if you're Bryce Callahan, I mean, what if you come back and you get injured again? It's even more serious. So the Broncos are just continuing an injury-filled year. If you're Von Miller, speaking of injuries, I know he's talking about he wants to come back. He wants to play. He wants to be out there for his team. That's another guy where the situation's different. He has to come back and play because he's fighting for a contract. And I know that's, we got to stay away with that with Von Miller. We can't talk about his contract here. But the reality of the situation is he has to play for a good paycheck. And he has to play well. He's missed the whole season. He's coming off of his worst statistical season outside of the year he tore his ACL, but a year in which he was fully healthy and played most of the games. He's coming off of his worst statistical season in terms of sacks, and I believe tackles as well. He just had no impact last year. None. And so what is the situation with Von Miller? I mean, I know he said he wants to come back and play, but is it really worth it to come back and play at a certain point? I mean, you're coming off of a significant injury, the second significant injury in your career. Age is not your friend anymore. You know, you're on the backside of 30. Does it help you to come back and play at this point? I don't think it does. I was just going through all the guys yesterday that got injured. I think Bryce Callahan got injured, Philip Lindsay. I just don't think it's worth it if you're those guys. I mean, Bryce Callahan maybe because you're going into a contract year. I believe he's a free agent after this year to play. But if you're Philip Lindsay, I was just saying, if you're Philip Lindsay, what is the point of me coming back to play? He's going to be a restricted free agent. So the Broncos, if a team wants to sign him, the Broncos can place a draft tender on him, like a second round tender, and the team's going to have to give that second rounder up to the Broncos if they want to steal him away. So if you're Philip Lindsay, what purpose do you get out of playing this year, coming back and playing? Now he's a competitor, and I doubt he'll think this way. But if you're thinking about it logically, he's not going to rush for 1,000 yards this year. He's already missed time earlier this year with an injury. He's not going for a Pro Bowl berth. This team's not going to the playoffs. You know, the offense sucks again. Why come back? Why not just get completely healthy, give yourself even more time to your offseason and come back? Same with Von Miller. Now, Von Miller's in a different situation because he's coming off of a significant injury and he needs to play at least somewhat well to earn somewhat of a paycheck. But at the same time, too, I mean, you can make the argument for Von Miller. You're coming off of the second significant injury in your career, and you're on the back side of 30, not the friendly side. What's the point of you coming back? This team's not coming to the playoffs, and I get what he said. He wants to come back and play and do all that, and that's just mainly because he wants to earn a good contract. You want to know why? Because he knows he's not going to get paid at the number he's playing at. So even though he says he doesn't want to take a pay cut or, do a contract extension or come back at a reduced rate, he knows that that's the reality of the situation in which the Broncos are going to come to him and say, we're not going to pay you that number, so either you take lesser money or we're just going to have to let you go. And that's the reality of the situation for these guys. And same with Bryce Callahan. I don't know. Let me see if Bryce is a free agent this year. But if you're Bryce Callahan, who's a guy that's notorious for having injury issues, he's been banged up throughout this entire season. And I don't know what he hurt yesterday. I don't know if it was a serious injury or if it was just a minor one because Ojemudia got in. So, yeah, he's going to be he's still got another year under his deal. So if you're him, why even come back at this point? There's no point for you to come back either. So, I don't know. This team's going nowhere fast. And it's time that these guys start preparing for next season, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I think the part of it has to do with where is this team going? Because I don't think Philip Lindsay should return the season, and I don't think he should sign back with Denver. I think Denver has treated him poorly. Now, I have my concerns and issues with Philip Lindsay, but at the same time, if I were Philip Lindsay, I wouldn't want to come back to Denver. Well,
he'll be here at least one more year unless the team's willing to give up a high draft pick for him, which I don't think they will.
I mean, then I'd ask for a trade.
No, that's one way he could do it too. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're injured this year and you're out for how many weeks do they have left? What's their record?
They have 5 games left, and they're 4-7.
Yeah, so 5 games left. If you're out the next 3 weeks, I don't come back. But that's us though. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. If Denver goes out and wins a couple more games, then if they're still technically alive for the playoffs, maybe they come back. But they're gonna lose next week.
Yeah. The only 2 games that they could possibly win is the Panthers and the Chargers. That's it. And unless the Raiders rest guys in week 17, I don't see them beating the Bills. I see them getting completely boat raced in 2 of the next 5 games, or 2 of the next 3 games.
I could see them beating the Raiders are a weird team.
I think that'll be close. I don't think they'll get
that's the
blown
last
out
game.
like they did.
But yeah, that's the last game of the season, so it's hard to say. this team is a mess. I saw Cameron on Twitter. Look, Cameron, I I I want to say I get it, but I don't. I really don't. But he said anyone who wants Vic Fangio fired after the season are informed morons. Okay.
I didn't see that one.
Vic Fangio is not a good coach. He's not a good head coach. You want a good example? Week 1, the timeout issue. You want another good example? How about the quarterbacks not wearing their masks? I mean, how about another one? I don't pay attention to the offense that much. Okay. How about another one? The defense has given up 30-plus points in quite a few games. Oh, but you're going to blame that on the offense? Well, maybe Vic Fangio should pay more attention to the offense then. I mean, thought he was supposed to be this, all great defensive coordinator. And the defense, I mean, in New Orleans' first drive, I believe they went right down and scored a touchdown, right? That's not the offense's fault. Right? You can't blame the offense on that one. How about preventing, the offense turned the ball over, but how about you bend but don't break and you just hold them to a field goal? I mean, they were around midfield. You could have forced them to punt. That's only your second defensive possession, so you shouldn't be tired. But no, they go right down and score a touchdown. Pretty easy, too. So, this defense, I don't care if you blame it on injuries or not, this defense isn't very good. Oh, and by the way, Chicago's offense wasn't very good. They put the Chicago defense in bad positions all the time. But they still played great. How about Super Bowl 50 that year? The Broncos offense continued to put the Broncos defense in bad positions. But the Broncos defense was actually good and great, and they still held up. So, what do you want? Honestly, if you want to continue to defend Vic Fangio and this team, you are a moron. Because you're literally blind. You're literally blind to the situation, and you really just don't get it. You don't understand the NFL at that point. If you continue to back these guys up. Now, both you and I have said the smarter thing might be to bring everyone back because we don't trust John Elway. So you might as well bring everyone back and just let Elway finish this thing out than to try and start over and then have Elway leave in the middle of it, because then that puts you in another bad position. So we're saying to bring them back for a complete different reason. Vic Fangio is not a very good head coach. Is he a good defensive coordinator with talent? Sure, but there's no talent on this team. No. At least not enough. There's not enough. There's not the same amount of talent as even if Vaughn was healthy. Don't give me that crap. Oh, if Vaughn was healthy. You realize what he did last year, right?
Yeah, he was healthy last year. So, what's the excuse for last year?
He's what, 32? I mean, I think
he'll be 32 in January or something like that.
He's done as far as him being a top 3 player on your defense. He is now in the DeMarcus Ware, where DeMarcus Ware was when he came to Denver. That is where Vaughn is. Their careers are nearly identical. So don't give me this crap of, if they were healthy, look at how much money is on their injured reserve. Most of that money is Vaughn's money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's come on. Vic Fangio is not a good head coach. Should he be fired? Look, if I were running things, everyone would be fired.
Yeah.
And I think most teams would probably just fire everyone if they were in this position. But unfortunately, the Broncos don't have an owner. And when everything with the ownership happened, what, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, it was
Something like
pretty
that.
obvious that this was going to happen. Because when you don't have an owner, your GM doesn't have any accountability. And he can do whatever he wants, and he can be there forever, for however long he wants, at least until his contract is up, right? So, or until a new owner comes in. And we have 4 years of proof before all that happened of how poor of a GM John Elway actually was. But because they had Peyton Manning and they got lucky with guys like DeMarcus Ware and Aqib Talib that wanted to be here because of Peyton Manning, it didn't show. But if you look at the draft and you look at how stingy John Elway was with money, it's pretty obvious that once Peyton was gone, that it was going to go downhill from there. Unless they got lucky and found a quarterback. In which they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, Vic Fangio is not a good head coach. This coaching staff is not a good staff. This team is one of the worst run teams in the league. Right now, Washington is run better. I think Denver's right there with Dallas. I think even Dallas is run better, to be honest. Philly's run better. The whole NFC East is run better. I think the only teams that you can say is run more poorly is the Cincinnati Bengals, because they continue to put their prized possession in danger constantly year after year, and the Jets, because the Jets don't know what they're doing.
Well, I'd say teams like Jacksonville, Detroit too.
And Jacksonville,
those are teams
yeah.
that are just poorly run. But
Even Detroit is owning up to their mistake and firing their GM and their head coach. So no, honestly, Detroit.
Well, but they did fire a coach who took them to the playoffs too, and Jim Caldwell. So
Sure.
In favor of a coach that had never been a head coach, and then completely tanked the franchise from any potential that they did have.
But right now, I'd rather be in Detroit's position than Denver's position.
Well, right. I mean, they're trending up. I mean, they're turning over a new leaf. Anytime you make some sort of change, there's hope for that. There's natural hope for that. I'll say this, and I read through Cameron's tweet, and some of the responses are just like, people just like, this is one. Fangio is building a culture. What culture is that?
Right.
They're 2 losing seasons. Those calling for his staff or Locke's head have to realize we need stability. Locke is still improving. Please show me where that's happening. And Fangio is doing very well himself. People, come on.
Come on. But see, that's where the bar. When you lose, like the Broncos have the last 4 or 5 seasons, that's what happens to your fan base.
You become accepting of so many things. And listen, I get what Cam is trying to get at. I'll say this.
I don't get what he's trying to say. I think he's an idiot.
I'll say this, and maybe he's not making a good argument for it. I think this is where you could defend Vic Fangio, okay? First-year head coach. He made a lot of mistakes last year. Time management, it seems like he doesn't take responsibility. First-year stuff. We can blame it on that. That's fine.
But then he did it again this season, though.
Right. Well, but this is where I'm going with it. That you can chalk up to first year mistakes. Okay, those mistakes. Then you look at this year. Okay, a bunch of injuries, COVID, season, lack of off season. Okay, I can give him that. I can give him a pass there as well. He's dealing with a shorthand. So is everybody else. But you know what? In his second year, it's not an ideal situation for him to be dealing with there. So those are really the only 2 arguments I could make there for Vic Fangio. On the other side, though, like you just said, he doesn't seem to be getting better at those mistakes of time management. There's times where, throughout this season, even though I was fine with him yesterday doing it, where he doesn't seem to take full responsibility, admitting openly that you don't watch your offense in practice, that you're more focused on the defense, that in a game where it was a late game situation, he was more focused on the next defensive play call instead of the late game situation itself. Like, it's stuff like that is like, dude, are you even cut out for this stuff? And let me ask you this, okay? What do you think Vance Joseph's record as the Broncos head coach was overall? How many games do you think he won?
I mean, I don't know how many games he coached.
He coached a total of 32 games.
Okay, so he did get 2 full seasons. Um, 32. He probably won 12.
He won 11.
Oh, I was
Vic
close.
Fangio has had
That was close.
27 games so far. So Vance Joseph has had 5 more.
Hmm.
How many games do you think Vic has won?
11, 10.
He's got 11.
11, yeah.
So, granted, Fangio still has 5 more games, so he could potentially finish with a better record than VJ.
By
But at the same time,
1 or 2 games.
exactly. But at the same time, they're on the same pace here. They're both trending to be not good. So, I just don't listen. You mentioned it. I think there's 2 decisions you got to go here. My first decision would be to clean house completely. Get rid of everybody. The whole coaching staff.
Yeah.
Well, not the whole coaching staff. I would keep Munchak back. And honestly, I would go to Fangio and say, you know what? We don't want you to be the head coach anymore. But if you want to stay as the defensive coordinator, I'll take you. Because I do think he's a good defensive coordinator. Other than that,
With the right pieces, yeah.
Pat Shurmur, Tom McMahon, even though you're a great soundbite, I'm sorry, my guy, we got to let you go. Okay? Maybe there's other positional coaches like Zach Azani. He seems to do well with the wide receivers. Those guys maybe I keep. But my first choice would be to clear house. Elway, Fangio, Ellis. If I could fire him, I'd fire him too. But those guys, I would clear house on those. Locke, sorry. You could stay as the backup maybe, but you're not my starting quarterback. My second choice would be bring everybody back, give them a full normal year, and if they prove to, if you finish next year, if it's 8-8, 7-9, but it looks good, it feels like you're actually going in a good direction, or hell, even 9-7. Okay, you proved us all wrong. Let's get back on this thing and let's get back to winning ways. But if you get another full year, and it's another year of 5-6 wins or even less, then that just proves to me what we already know. Regardless, the Broncos are going to be bad next year regardless of what happens, okay? If Fangio's back and the whole crew are back, they're going to be bad, most likely. If they get rid of everybody, they're probably going to be bad. It's the first year for everybody. So I just, man, this team, there's just so many things about this team that is just, it's disappointing from a whole organizational standpoint, but that's where I'm at with it. Either you bring everybody back or you completely get rid of everybody. But to say that people who want Fangio gone are uninformed morons? Cam, come on, guy. I mean, there's legitimate gripes to be had with Vic Fangio as a head coach. So how can you say people would be uninformed morons? He has the same amount of wins as VJ. The culture hasn't changed despite what some of these guys are saying in the comments. You're still a losing football team. Your quarterback has regressed. I just don't get that. I don't understand how you can say that, how you can say people are uninformed morons when the guy that everybody seemed to hate and blame everything on in Vance Joseph, I mean, he has the same wins as Vic almost through 2 seasons. Vic may finish, like you said, with 2 more wins max, maybe 1. But at the end of the day, if I guarantee you, for the average fan who probably don't know how many wins that Vance finished with, and probably don't know how many off the top of their head, how many that Vic has, or maybe they do after 2 seasons since it's recent. If you would have put both of their stats together, offense stats, defensive stats, where the team's ranked and all that stuff, and their winning records, and you didn't put the names on which was which, I guarantee you wouldn't be able to tell me who was Vance and who was Vic Fangio. I guarantee you, because you want to know why? I wouldn't be able to do that. I would have a hard time doing that. And I would probably pick VJ as the one that won more games. Because honestly, to me, I think the team was actually better and more competitive with VJ at certain points than Vic Fangio. I don't know. That's just me. It's a whole organizational thing. It's disappointing. It's depressing on certain levels that people just stoop to this and want to accept whatever they can, any semblance of hope. But until the Broncos, get an ownership or get an owner and get out of this Elway era, we're not going to see good football. That's just, and maybe I'll be shocked, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
No, I mean it's been the same thing for the last 3-4 years. So I don't really know what people expect. I, I mean, look, I respect Cam, but that's probably one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. So
Yeah, and I plan on getting a
that
little
was
Twitter spat with him here
that
after the
was.
show and just ask him about like you do realize there's legitimate gripes that can be had here
I
though,
mean,
right? So
that's one of the dumbest tweets I've ever seen,
yeah.
and I see a lot of dumb tweets.
Well, and that's where there's a difference between being optimistic and positive about your
And
team
being an idiot.
and just being unrealistic and being unwilling to be objective. There's a fine line between being positive and being fanboy. You can be positive about this team. A positive thing about this team is Garrett Bowles is playing well. He looks to be like a stable left
He
tackle.
deserved that contract.
A positive thing is saying Noah Fant looks like a really good player. Jerry Jeudy has a lot of potential. Cortland Sutton, like your wide receiver core, could potentially be the best in one of the best in the league. In the coming years. That's positive. That's positive. But saying Drew Lock is improving, saying that Vic Fangio is a good head coach when he hasn't really shown that after continuous mistakes, that this team is trending in the right direction. That's just fanboy. That's just being unwilling to state the objective or being objective and state the obvious here. So I mean, I get it. You want the team to win, so do we all. But and like Kemp said, drinking that Kool-Aid, yeah, man, it's the guys that drink the orange and blue Kool-Aid, that have the Broncos snuggie. That's what they do. That's how they want to see this team, and they get mad at people critiquing this team. But you understand that we're critiquing this team because we want them to be good, because there's a standard that has been set. If you don't want us to critique this team, okay, well, I guess we'll just turn into, the Jets or the Lions. Because again, we're not far removed from people showing up to the stadium with bags on their head. How many games do you think would have been complete no-shows if we had fans this year? If this was a normal year, how many times do you think the Broncos would have sold
Well,
out that stadium?
to be fair, I think 90% of Bronco fans are, Kool-Aid drinking morons. So I don't know. I think they still would have showed up just because that's what. Look, I never want to hear again that the Broncos fan base is a bad fan base. They are the Broncos are probably in the top 5 in the league as far as best fans, because they continue to prove it year after year when this team is crap, right? And credit to those fans for doing what they do, because I don't think the Broncos don't deserve it. I mean, that's for damn sure. So
And a lot of fans are
think
smartening up to that. Every week on Twitter, I see fans continuously getting privy to this stuff and saying, this is crap. I'm not watching this. I'm not supporting this. I want things to change. There's a lot of fans that are out there like that, but they unfortunately get drowned out by, the fans that just want to blindly support. And unfortunately, there's media organizations out there that promote this stuff and aren't willing to, and for whatever reasons, maybe they can't be as critical as maybe they would want to be, or as other stations like the one I work for are. But I mean, just be honest about this team.
I mean, it's really as simple as just looking at what else is going around like what other teams are doing around the league. You want to talk about, because he said I don't want. Cameron said he gave Vic Fangio's defense an excuse because the offense wasn't helping him. Well, how about Miami? They put up 13 points against the Jets. Or maybe they ended up putting up 20, but it was 13 for most of the game. Miami's defense still held them to 3. What did the Broncos defense do against the Jets? Oh, that's right. They gave up 28 and almost lost. I mean, come on. There's other teams around the league that don't have a good offense like the Browns, the offense, that team has struggled. Look at the last, I think this past week playing the Jacksonville, they were fine. But the 3 weeks before that, they put up 6, 3, 10, 13. Guess what the defense did? They won those 3 games. Or 2 of them. And the defense gave up less than probably 14 points in all 3 of those games. So stop blaming the offense for the defense giving up points. The Broncos defense gave up back-to-back touchdowns in the opening in the first 2 drives for the Saints. Yes, the second one came off of turnover, but they had the ball. They didn't even have the ball at midfield. They were in their own territory. I'm pretty sure. Or maybe just inside the Broncos. You couldn't hold them to a field goal? So, look, you can't give credit to Vic Fangio for the defense when the defense is giving up points in the first 2-3 drives. Now, if they were giving up points later in the game, sure, and there's been a couple games that has happened. But there's
been a few games where they haven't come through in clutch. You
right.
You think of the Tennessee game last year, or this year, the Bears game last year.
All you had to do was hold them to a field goal.
Yeah. Untimely penalties. I mean, I think the defense deserves blame, but they also deserve credit.
They do.
Now, the Broncos wouldn't be in a lot of games if the defense didn't play well to start. Unfortunately for them, on most Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, the Broncos offense isn't good enough to hang. And by the time that they get, some sort of rhythm, the Broncos defense is just shot. They're tired because they've been on the field the whole game. And then there's games where the Broncos defense just doesn't show up, like the Atlanta game. And they just get completely just blown out and just made a fool of. So I will say the Broncos defense, I don't think mainly is the issue.
No.
But there is.
But you cannot say that Vic Fangio is a good coach because of the defense.
No. He's a good defensive coordinator. I think, and the Broncos defense too. Like, I get Fangio had an elite defense in Chicago, but this defense hasn't been elite. They may have been like top 5 or top 10 in certain categories, but it hasn't been an elite defense all around. They've had their weaknesses. Now, I don't think the defense overall has been the problem in Vic Fangio's tenure, but it wasn't really the issue either, I don't think, in VJ's tenure. It's been the offense for years, and it's been head coaching. So, listen, there's only it just feels like a cycle. Every week we just go through the same stuff, and people continuously want to deny just for the sake of being fanboy and wanting nothing but good things said about their team. And it's just, you can be pessimistic about this team because they're putting out a bad product. You can be critical. Now, is there times where I'm probably overcritical? Sure, I'll say that. But that's just because you've put me in a situation now for 4 years to where now I just expect bad from you. That's just what I expect. Until you prove me otherwise, like the Nuggets did, because they're in those Brian Shaw years, you just expected bad. And to a sense, you still kind of expect bad things to happen for the Nuggets because that's just the Nuggets. But they've at least proven, okay, they're actually a good, respectable team. The Denver Broncos haven't proven that year over year since Super Bowl 50. So it's just a constant carousel, a constant circle and cycle of the same nonsense. And again, at the end of the day, I hate it. I hate saying this, but it's not going to be fixed until you get a new owner and until you get a new GM. And hopefully when the Broncos do get a new owner, hopefully it's an owner that's actually committed to winning and not committed to padding his pocketbook like the Monforts are, and other owners we see in sports. So, yeah, but it's, I don't know. I don't know what else to say anymore about the Broncos. They're a bad football team.
And here's the thing with this defense. So they're 10th in yards, and they are in the top 10 in sacks. I think better than that. They have 30 plus sacks. So that's good. But you want to know how you find out if your defense is actually really good? Do you know what that main thing is? What the defense can do?
Stop teams from scoring.
Well, that.
I mean, you don't let teams score.
But how about you get takeaways and you help your offense out? Because you're complaining that your offense isn't helping you out. But how about you get takeaways yourself? How many takeaways do you think the Broncos have this year?
I would say I would want to say under 10, but maybe close to 10.
They
Maybe
have 11.
9, 10.
They
Okay.
have 11. There's only 2 teams that have less than that. The Dallas Cowboys with 10 and the Houston Texans with 8. The Bears, the Bengals, the Lions, the Eagles, and the Jaguars all have 11. That includes interceptions and turnovers. And fumbles. The Broncos have 8 interceptions, which is, let's see, that puts them in the lower half still with those teams. And 3 forced fumbles is the second least in the league. Cincinnati has 2. So, how about you help out your offense? You're asking them to help you out. Well, how about you help them out? Like, there's some really good teams up at the top here. Even Kansas City has 17 takeaways, and their defense has not been very good this year. But guess what? They get takeaways. They help their offense. Pittsburgh, they help their offense. They have 21, most in the league. Tampa Bay, their defense is trash. They give up a lot of yards and a lot of points. But guess what? They help their offense. They have 20 turnovers, takeaways. The Miami Dolphins have 19 takeaways. The Rams have 18 takeaways. The Saints have 18 takeaways. Even the Giants, who are probably going to win that division, they help out their offense. They have 18 takeaways. The Bills, they help out Josh Allen. They have 17 takeaways. The Browns, they help out Baker. They have 17 takeaways. The Titans have 16. Even San Francisco, with all the injuries that they have 16 takeaways. Seattle might be the worst defense in the league, has 15 takeaways, still more than the Broncos. So I stop with, defending Vic Fangio because his defense is great, and, they're giving up, they're the top 10 in giving up yards per game. And they're in the top 10 as far as getting sacks. Cool. A lot of those sacks come in the first quarter. They don't matter.
Yeah, I just you can make a defense for Fangio and the defense, but there's also legitimate flags and gripes to be had with these guys. And at the end of the day, that's all I'm asking people to see. You can be positive about the team. You can choose to be more positive about the team. That's fine. That's your opinion. That's what you want to do. But at the end of the day, don't let your positivity, spill over and flood over into fanboy. And then you're just choosing just not to be objective. Just be objective about the team. You can still be positive about the team. Listen, there's positive things about this team. They have a really good crop of young talent, but they're still not a good football team. And just because you have that doesn't mean you're going to be good either. You still need the intangible things. And people don't seem to want to realize that and understand that. So, but that's all I got today. You have anything else you want to get off your chest?
No.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. We thank you guys for tuning in. Shout out to Kemp for interacting
Also,
with us on YouTube.
we both have Seattle tonight, right?
Both have Seattle tonight.
Yeah.
That is correct. And we both have Pittsburgh on Tuesday. Unless, you want to take the Baltimore Ravens. I'd be happy to change that for you.
No, Seattle and Pittsburgh. We're gonna stay where we're at.
All right.
You know what we should start doing though? We should start adding in the covers to it. I'd be interested to see how bad we are when it comes to.
See, I told you people this was gonna start to happen.
No,
it's gonna slowly.
No, I'm curious because I see a lot.
I get late night texts about signing up to give him free money in all these bet places he's joining.
No,
I wouldn't be shocked if he's joining a secret Reddit group.
Oh my god.
Just all these things.
I'm just curious to see how bad we would be because I think we'd be awful.
I would be.
I think I'd be pretty bad too.
I don't know, maybe. Sure, it'd be fun. It'd be almost as fun as getting another box of promo cookies like I will at the end of the year. That's gonna do it for us today though. We thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you had a great weekend, great Thanksgiving. And we'll be back at it on Friday. For Brandon Stoll on the other side, I'm Stephen Preach Jr. signing off. This has been the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast.